Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 992A, and today's date is June 8th, 2016, and the title of the episode is, It Begins, the Yuan Goes Global as China Grants U.S. First Investment Quota. Let's get into the economic collapse financial news. Now, today we see the market, it moved over 18,000. Everyone should be feeling good that the economy is doing well, because this is what the U.S. government central bankers are using the stock market for. They're trying to convince the entire public in the world that the economy is doing well. Now, if you take what we just saw in the stock market and you take the 4.7% unemployment, everyone will believe that everything is fine. Now, in the background, well, we are seeing a completely different story. And in the background, leading up to the 2008 crash, we are seeing the same type of story, but no one likes to talk about it. The U.S. government, the corporate media, they're not going to be talking about it because they want you to believe that everything is fine. Now, today we saw consumer credit. It didn't do as well as it did in March. And it only increased by 13.4 billion, well below the 18 billion that was expected. And the biggest culprit in this entire thing was the revolving credit. And we can see there's been a lot of people being laid off. A lot of people that are in jobs are very nervous because they see their colleagues being laid off. And many people most likely are not out there going to spend money. And those people that are being laid off, they're not trying to spend any money at this point either. And what we're seeing right now is a slowdown. And remember, when we talk about revolving credit, it's really not the people's money. This is all borrowed money. And it's amazing how they use this to gauge how the economy is doing. Because anybody can get a credit card. Actually, today, all you need is a heartbeat. And you can borrow money to buy things. The problem is that people don't have money to pay these cards off. They just keep charging and living off of them. Take away the cards, it's a completely different story. If we had a strong economy, we wouldn't need to borrow money to pay for food, to live and pay for our everyday expenses. A strong, vibrant economy, all you would need is the money that you earned. But today we live in a completely different world. And we see right now, as we move forward, it's just going to get worse and worse. Now, everyone thought, well, if we could only increase minimum wage, this would solve all our problems, because that is the problem. People are just not making enough money. And of course, what they did is they went from $8.25, they increased it to $11.50, and then they brought it up to $15 an hour. Now, we know what companies do when this occurs. Well, they lay off people. They go ahead and they remove the living person from the job and they replace it with an electronic kiosk type of system that can do the same job, and all of these minimum wage people are out of work. And this is starting to come true. According to a report from the Employment Policy Institute, nearly half of Washington, D.C. employers said they have either laid off employees or reduced the hours of employees to adapt to the new wage hikes since 2014. The District of Columbia have seen the minimum wage go from like $8.25 in 2014 to $11.50, all the way up to $15. And to offset this, they've been laying off people, reducing the hours, and going electronic. Now, our problem is not that people aren't making enough money. Well, that's a little piece of it. And yes, everyone would love to make more money. The problem is the central bank. The problem is the devaluation of the dollar, which makes things a lot more expensive. And we're continually seeing this. And it's going to continue on as we move forward. So doing this Band-Aid fix of raising the minimum wage, it's not going to do anything. Maybe in the short run, people will feel happy, I'm making more money. But in the long run, it's not going to solve anything. And we can see already, it's not really helping. It's like at work, if you get your raise, does it really help you? Or does it just keep you level on the playing field? And when that raise stops, guess what happens? Things are getting more expensive, or I should say the dollar is being devalued. It makes it harder for you. So we need to go to the source, to the disease, and that is the central bank. That's the thing we need to get rid of. We need to get rid of a bank that creates money out of thin air and then attaches interest to it and gives it to the government. And the government prints up a bond that it gives to the Federal Reserve. And now the government owes interest on the money they just borrowed. And of course, they don't have the funds to pay the interest, so they have to borrow more. And this situation is a no-win situation. Now, in the corporate media, they're pushing the idea that hiring is tumbling, even though the job openings are at record highs. Now, the biggest number of job openings were in the leisure and hospitality services industries, followed by accommodation and food services, retail trade, education and health services, and of course these are all low minimum wage jobs. Professional and business services, well, their openings fell to 274,000 in April. And we need to remember one thing. You can have millions and millions of openings. That's absolutely meaningless, because when I was working for a corporation in Manhattan, and it was a financial institution, we had many, many openings. But we were on a hiring freeze. Now, the openings stay there, and they kept on adding more openings, but we weren't allowed to hire people. This is to make it look good out in the workforce. Look at all these jobs that are opening, but no one is hiring. And this is exactly what we're seeing right now. Actually, if we go back in time, and we go back to the year of 2006 leading into 2007, the job openings look very, very similar to what we are seeing now. And at that 2007 area, it started to decline. And we are seeing the same thing right now. And we can see right now is that from the job numbers, there are no jobs out there. Those people that are coming out of college who are saying, I'm going to get this great job, I'm going to make a nice living, I'm going to buy a house, I'm going to buy a car. Well, guess what? That's not working either. The U.S. government over the last 15 years made $1 trillion investment to improve the nation's workforce. Now, a big portion of that investment, yes, that went into the student loan market to get people back into school so they can get these incredible jobs. Now, they invested in human capital. And the government helped tens of millions, pay for their tuition through loans. And graduate schools soared 24% in 2002 to 2012. And we saw everything increase. And everyone see, everyone's going back to school. Everything is going to be fine. Everyone's going to find an incredible job. Well, new research that came out said this entire plan completely backfired. Millions of students are worse off now for having to go to school. Many never learned new skills because they dropped out. Many who stayed in school learned no skills whatsoever. And guess what they got at the end of graduation? A huge debt bill. And they're unable to repay it. Now, we can see that many of these graduates, they're working part-time jobs, they're going for loan modification because there's nothing out there for them. And these graduates are going to be trapped in this debt arena for a very long time, and it's not going to help the nation's economy. Actually, it's going to hurt it in the long run. And this is exactly what we're seeing right now. And as we move forward, there are no jobs, and continually going to school is not going to help. A lot of the manufacturing jobs have left. A lot of the big businesses are leaving. And that's all that's left are these minimum wage, low-paying jobs. And we can see it by the job numbers. So what we're looking at right now is the economy is continually deteriorating. America isn't what it was once like. Manufacturing has left. Jobs have left. We're turning into a minimum wage service type of country. And there is no improvement at this point. And we can see that the dollar at this time, it is collapsing. Many countries are out there. They are dumping it from their reserves. Many countries are out there dumping treasuries. And we see that Russia and China, they are building a new economic system. And this has been in the works for quite a while. It just didn't happen yesterday. They've been separating themselves from the dollar. They've been separating themselves from the SWIFT payment system, creating their own, mimicking everything that we have in the West, and they're creating it in the East. Well, China's going to take the next step right now. And they want the yuan to go global. And we see China is going to grant the U.S. a 250 billion yuan quota under its renminbi Qualified Foreign Institutional Investor Program. This was launched in 2011. This is the first efforts by the Chinese government to internationalize the renminbi. And we can see that they're extending their hand to the United States, saying, listen, let's work together. And you're going to be our first qualified investor. And let's see what the U.S. does with this. Because China is trying to work and slowly move the entire economic system from the West to the East. Now, of course, the United States doesn't want this to happen. We know this. But we can see eventually, most likely, from everything that we've been looking at, from all the indicators, it is moving in this direction. And China is increasing its quotas and expanding the list of countries. Over the past year, the RQFII has involved Australia, Chile, Malaysia, Thailand, with a quota of 50 billion for each country. And they're continually doing this. And we can see that the U.S. government central bankers, they don't want this to really happen at this point. They want to hold on to their system. They believe if they can just have more regime change, if they can get those countries with natural resources, place the dollar on the oil, prop up the system, they can keep the system going. But the system is so bogged down with debt. The system is reaching its end point at this point, and it can't continue on. And many of the other countries realize this, and we can see already that there's a big, some people call it a reset, some people call it a change, but it's coming. And at this point, it really can't be stopped. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.